how one of the most misunderstood forces in history did so much more than just create fighters. It quietly shaped warriors, entire nations, and yeah, even our modern world.
So, when you hear the words martial arts, what's the first thing that pops into your head? You know, high-flying kicks, crazy action movie fight scenes? Well, what if I told you that's barely scratching the surface?
The real story? Man, it's way more incredible. Think of it like a hidden thread, woven all the way through history. This was a force that didn't just make fighters, it literally fueled revolutions and built empires from the inside out.
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to go way back to the very beginning. And for a second, I want you to forget about the battlefield, because the origins of these arts, they're actually rooted in philosophy, discipline, and this deep quest for inner strength.
And what's so fascinating is that these arts weren't even born for combat. I mean, think about it. In ancient China, you had Shaolin monks developing kung fu, not for fighting, but just to help them get through hours and hours of meditation. Over in feudal Japan, the samurai weren't just training fighters, they were creating an entire code for life, Bushido. And then in Korea, you have this beautiful fluid art called Taekwondo, which honestly looks more like a dance than a fighting style.
Let's just take Bushido for a second. This was so much more than a how-to guide for using a sword. It was a seriously strict ethical code that governed a warrior's entire life, their loyalty, their honor, everything. And this philosophy was so powerful it actually outlasted the samurai themselves. It went on to shape Japan's national identity for centuries.
All right, so these arts start out as these really profound systems of discipline. But you know, history has this funny way of turning tools of peace into weapons of war. And that's exactly what happened here. They became something way more explosive. The art of resistance.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Whenever an occupying army or some tyrant wants to control people, what's the first thing they do? They take away their weapons, right? But what happens when the people themselves are the weapons? And this is where the story takes a huge turn. In colonial India, the British banned the ancient art of Kalaripayattu, with all its incredible acrobatics and weapon skills. But did it disappear? No way. It just went underground. In China, Kung Fu went from being a temple exercise to the fuel for massive rebellions. And in occupied Korea, just practicing the art of Taekwondo became this powerful symbol of cultural defiance.
And here's the key takeaway, the thing you really got to understand. A forbidden art becomes a weapon of the people. See, when you try to crush a part of someone's culture, especially something tied so closely to their identity and their strength, you don't destroy it. You actually make it more powerful. You turn it into a living symbol of everything you're trying to suppress.
So from these secret rebellions, these arts were about to just explode onto the world stage. They went from being hidden weapons to, well, global phenomena. And that's the final chapter of our story, their incredible journey into our modern world.
And there's no better example of this in the story of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's just wild. It all starts with a Japanese judoka who travels to Brazil to teach. One of his students is this young man, Helio Gracie, who he wasn't physically strong at all. He couldn't rely on brute force. So what did he do? He adapted the art. He obsessed over every single move for finding it to be all about leverage, not strength. And this was an absolute game changer. It proved once and for all that a smaller, weaker person could beat a much larger one with the right technique. A whole new art was born, and it would change combat forever.
But that story, that incredible adaptation, it's not just about Brazil. It's really the story of how all these arts spread around the world, mixing, changing, constantly evolving as they made their way from ancient temples and into the very fabric of our modern lives.
I mean, today their influence is literally everywhere, and a lot of it is hiding in plain sight. It's baked into the training protocols for law enforcement and the military. It's an official Olympic sport that millions of us watch. And of course, it's what everyday people like you and me practice in gyms all over the globe for self-defense and fitness. When you think about where it started, that journey is just staggering.
So, when you step back and look at this whole incredible story, you can finally see it, that hidden thread we talked about in the beginning. It connects everything from a monk meditating in a quiet temple centuries ago to a modern soldier's combat training today. Because at the end of the day, you realize this whole thing, this massive global force, it was never really just about the fighting.
It was always about something deeper. It's philosophy, it's discipline, it's about finding strength when you feel like you have none left.
Really, it's the physical expression of one of the most basic human drives we all have, the absolute will to overcome.
So the next time you're watching an action movie or maybe an Olympic judo match, remember this story. Remember the rebel monks who defied empires, and remember the modern soldiers using techniques that are centuries old. Because what we've seen today is that martial arts didn't just influence history, they literally rewrote it.
And that kind of leaves us with one final big question. If a force like this could work just under the surface for so long, shaping our world in ways we're only just starting to grasp, what else is out there? What other hidden forces are quietly rewriting our history as we speak?